So if you're not interested in math, why would you come for a math camp?
So we also get students who don't necessarily like mathematics, and then they come there because there is some other aspect of the camp that they like. Maybe they got some kind of a love for history. Some of them, they really don't read the brochure. Maybe they just land up accidentally.
How is the teaching style at this camp different?
Right, yeah. But here what we do is we make them work in groups. And everything is not given, not spoon-fed into them. So they have to work together, they will think about it, they will discuss, they'll come up with a plausible theory, and then, they have to convince others that this is actually going to work. This happened in 2013 camp. All three of them were on the verge of, trying to come up with an idea of how did this particular mathematician, so it was Brahmagupta in that case, how did he come up with that particular formula for something related to cyclic quadrilaterals in geometry. But they weren't able to get to the end. But I didn't expect teenagers to wake up early in their morning. That's not their usual routine, not judging anybody. And then I see in the morning that three of them, they had already spent some 2 hours working on the problem. They were near the Annakshatra. I was like, wow. So that really amazed me to the extent to which they got inspired.
Hi there, I'm Anju. Today we have with us Mr. Vinay Nair, a phenomenal person, someone who has dedicated their entire life to mathematics and making it accessible and interesting to students. Whether you're a person who is passionate about mathematics or you're a history buff, this camp is for you. Hi sir, let's get into it. So at Vedic Mathrix, what kind of students are you expecting?
Right, so in the camp we look for students who are actually inquisitive, who have a lot of questions and who like to explore beyond what books offer. It's not necessarily students who are deeply passionate about mathematics, but who have questions in their mind. And we have a lot of engaging sessions with them. So it's a camp that is meant for all ages. There is usually a starting age bar depending on what topic is being discussed in the camp in that year. But every year the topics also change. So usually it is 12, 13 years or above, and adults also attend the camp just as a student, school student.
So if you're not interested in math, why would you come for a math camp?
That's a great question. So I think we have had students who are not passionate about mathematics, but maybe they got some kind of a love for history because they saw that there was some aspect of history being done. So we also get students who don't necessarily like mathematics, and then they come there because there is some other aspect of the camp that they like. Some of them, they really don't read the brochure. Maybe they just land up accidentally, or maybe their parents push them into the camp, and so we get students who are here by accident as well, but also students who really want to know something, and they are there. They just sign up for the camp. And of course we get students who are highly motivated in math and who want to do math for the sake of math and so on.
So you're saying an intersection of history and mathematics, and that's interdisciplinary learning, right?
Yeah.
So could you give me a few examples of how that works?
Right. So generally when we learn about math in the class, right? Let's say anything in algebra, we just learn it as a finished product, right? So we don't know how it started, what was the need for coming up with such an idea, or if it's a procedure, if it's an algorithm, then who came up with that algorithm? Why did they do that? And when we actually dig into all those questions, we realize that, oh my God, they were geniuses to come up with all these ideas. And we just are, seeing it as a very refined product. So we don't know, what was the origin. And when we look into these origins, that's when we are able to appreciate their brilliance. How did they come up with that? So for instance, if we talk about, say, 0, right? If we ask anybody who invented or discovered 0, what do you think the general answer in India would be?
Aryabhatta, of course.
Aryabhatta, right? And with an of course, right? But how do we know that for sure?
Someone told us.
Someone told us, right? And when everybody thinks that way, we may also think that, well, if everybody feels that way, then it has to be right. How can it be wrong? How can so many people be wrong, right? But here in the camp, we actually question that. We say, how do we know if Aryabhatta was the person who discovered or invented 0, right? Was it there in a book that he wrote? Or, did we read it somewhere? So if we read in books, what are the references that they have used to actually do that? So we dig deep into that. And finally, when we see that, oh my God, this is not some trivial thing that one person can wake up one fine morning or, even do research for 10 years, 20 years, they can come up with that idea. It is something very profound. So if I have to say how profound it is, I would say, okay, let's say, what does a cell phone mean to you? Okay. Somebody of your age, what does a cell phone mean to you?
I mean, for my generation, cell phones are everything. Right. Like your day begins and ends with a cell phone.
You start with an alarm.
Yeah. You set your alarm before you go to sleep. Exactly. You check your messages.
So everything, right from your communication, written, oral communication, note taking, everything happens on a cell phone, right? Let's go back 20 years. The people at that time, for them, what would a cell phone mean? What do you think?
I don't think they've even heard of the concept of a cell phone. It was probably a landline or something like that. And it was, if there was a cell phone, it's for the rich.
Yeah. So cell phone was, that is true. Cell phone was for people who could afford. 20 years back, I and my colleagues, everybody, we were using cell phones, but it was only for calling and it had a cost. You can play a few lame games on cell phones, but nothing beyond that. But if you go back even 10 years from there, what would a phone mean? Just pick up, dial numbers and those kind of things. So if you look at how phone as a tool has evolved in the last few decades, right? It's phenomenal, right? The person who would have invented the phone for the first time cannot even think of this smartphone that we are holding in our hand, right? So how can we say that one person discovered or invented a symbol for nothing, a digit, for 0, or a number 0, a placeholder on a number line, and it means so many things. So it is not something that is just one person's invention or contribution. It is something that has developed over hundreds of years. And when we see these kind of things, when we get into these discussions, then the participants are in awe. They're like, oh, I never thought about a simple idea as 0, which I take for granted as something so profound. So that is what we do when we do a integration of history and mathematics in the classroom. It is not about remembering dates. It's not about who contributed what, but it is asking more deeper questions, I would say.
So the way you explain the concept, you went step by step by step and you related it to something, which is not the conventional way that a teacher teaches.
Right.
So how is the teaching style at this camp different?
Right, yeah. So when we are talking about a conventional way of learning, let's say in a school, there is a fixed curriculum, right? So here also we have, for every camp, we have a set of topics that we want to discuss with the students. But here what we do is we make them work in groups, and everything is not given, not spoon fed into them. So they have to work together, they will think about it, they will discuss, they'll come up with a plausible theory, and then, they have to convince others that this is actually going to work, right? Of course, we have the luxury of time here, which is not there in the traditional classroom. And here it is not always the concepts that are taught to them and then they solve problems. While solving problems, they will come up with their own concepts. And learning happens in multiple ways. Sometimes we are doing some things on the ground. Maybe some things are happening in the classroom. Some things would be during discussions and debate sessions. and sometimes during breaks. I wake up and I come out of my room at 6:30 in the morning, and I already see students have been working, in the in the common area for last 1.5 hours on something in math. So learning happens in a very very what I can say, maybe like an organic way, and they just learn here and absorb the things that that are provided in the camp. Yeah.
So how would this experience be for a teacher, since, you're talking about so many methods of learning. Have you had experiences where teachers came in and they benefited from the camp?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that I feel, as a teacher, right? So usually we are in the shoes of transferring knowledge, or we see ourselves as somebody who's teaching a set of students, who's imparting that knowledge to students. But there is a lot of fun when we get into the shoes of a student, right? And we can think and we can discuss and we can learn in the classroom as a student. So my experience of myself sitting in a classroom with a bunch of other teachers and learning versus I sitting in a classroom with students who are much younger to me and learning, it's very different. Because when we are with the students who are very young, or rather much younger than us, they learn at a very different pace than we learn. So I have to keep up with that particular pace, and that keeps me on my toes, right? So that challenges me, that pushes me, but that's not the case when I'm learning with maybe somebody of my particular age group. The learning happens in a slightly slower way. So the teachers also experience the camp as teenagers, and they also go through all the activities. It's not just sessions that they attend to, they also participate in games, all the fun activities that we do. So they are just treated as a teenager in the camp, and that's a great learning experience that every teacher who has been part of this camp has told me.
So, if you have teachers here, you have students here, you have people from various age groups, does that mean that one section suffers because the speed is too fast or the speed is too slow? How does it challenge every person who comes here?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And there is no specific formula for this, but it is something that we, learn to, just like that while we are doing programs, is the audience is there to learn. Our job is to give the right level of challenge to the right set of students. So when we are dealing with a particular topic, it could be that there is one student who is very sharp and who thinks of a question that is just out of this world. I may feel like, going and hugging that particular student because of the kind of question that student asked. So for that student, we give them something extra that will really challenge them, and they are looking for that particular challenge. They may not be working on those questions in the class. So after the class, there are some extra sessions, problem solving time and other things on which, during that time, they work on those problems exclusively. While the younger students or the students who don't have those kind of questions, they are getting questions that will challenge them as well, and that is within their reach. They have to stretch, they don't get it easily, but they will still be able to do that. So in the class, it is kind of balanced, and sometimes, the dynamics also change. Maybe there are 4 of them who are about to crack, let's say, derivation of a particular formula. So then they are put in a particular group, and then they work on it together, while the other classes, we go with the regular pace. Or sometimes it also happens that some of these students, they will be able to do a better job in terms of explaining what we discussed in their group. So when we are dividing them into groups, in every group, sometimes there are some students who have gotten some more intense, the topics with a little more intensity, and they'll be able to help other students. So yeah.
And you said you get up in the morning and you come and kids are already solving questions, and that is not something you see anywhere really. So how is the culture at this camp different from any other place you might go to learn?
Yeah. So here I would like to quote a story. Okay, so this happened in 2013 camp, and until then also we were having students who were who were excited when they come for this camp. And in that camp, there were 2 boys and 1 girl, and they were, all 3 of them were on the verge of, trying to come up with an idea of how did this particular mathematician, so it was Brahmagupta in that case, how did he come up with that particular formula for something related to cyclic quadrilaterals in geometry. But they weren't able to get to the end, thing. And it was 10 o'clock at night. So I said, I'm sorry, but you guys need to hit the bed now. It's 10 o'clock. So two of the boys, they said, okay, maybe we'll go to the room and we'll work on it. But then they also wanted the girl to be part of the discussion. So I said, there is no way that at this time of the hour, it wouldn't be appropriate. So you guys have to go back to your respective, hostels. So then one of them asked, there is a restriction on what time we need to go to bed, what time lights are off. Is there a restriction on what time lights can be on? Right? So I said, well, you can wake up as long as, it's not very early when nobody has woken up. You can wake up, and there is a temple here. So usually people come very early in the morning into the temple and all that. But I mean, I didn't expect teenagers to wake up early in their morning. That's not their, usual routine. Not judging anybody, but that's not the usual routine. And then I see in the morning that, three of them, they had already spent some 2 hours working on the, problem. They were near the Annakshetra. I was like, wow. So that really amazed me to, the extent to which they got inspired. And all three of them, if they were individually present at their respective homes, this inspiration, this synergy won't come, right? For that, they need to come to that specific place, and then they have to work on it together. And that continued as a culture. So they came the year after that, right? And then for them, okay, if you don't wake up in the morning, then, we just have 5 days. In these 5 days, we really have to come up with something profound. So they started waking up early, and the others are like, okay, so we will also wake up, early. As they say in the Gita, yad acharati shrestha tatta deva tarojana. Whatever the, elders do, the younger ones will follow automatically. So the younger ones, they also started doing it. Now, if you ask anybody, why are you waking up early in the morning for the camp? They have no idea because it has been the camp culture. They are just following their previous campers who had come here. And so that became like a culture in the camp, which was set by, just 3 students.
So, I mean, you have 5 days and you have kids going to sleep at 10 p.m. and they're getting up at God knows when people are coming to the temple. Do people study for like so long every day for 5 days?
Yeah, so one thing that is very hard to believe for parents as well as students is, after the camp is that they have actually spent so many hours doing intense thinking, and which is very unusual for a normal schooler. I mean, in school also we study, but it is not that there is a lot of deep thinking that we do. And honestly, here we spend even more hours discussing and talking about math and a lot of other topics. But it happens automatically in this place. So let's think about this. So let's say that you live in a city, okay, in a metropolitan city. You need more rest because it's a city, right? You go to a village, you go to a hamlet somewhere, you go to a place on the mountains. Even 4 hours of sleep will make you feel fresh, right? Now, when you come to a place like Adi Shankara Nilayam, we need to think what is so special about this place. Of course, this is the birth home of Adi Shankara, right? The one of the greatest philosophers who gave commentaries for all these high philosophical stuff without which a layman, not even a seeker can really understand. So he, without his commentaries, nobody could make sense of, much sense of all these philosophical texts. So he was born here. And the place, what is it used for? It's used for academic camps. So anybody who come here, they are coming with some serious purpose. They are here to study something. And when everybody is coming here for the same purpose, right? So there is that vibe in the atmosphere, right? So that it just enables you to do a lot of things without much effort. So learning, I feel, happens here very effortlessly And then when you look back, you realize, oh my God, I was doing so many hours of math in a day. Unbelievable.
So you talked about how this is the birthplace of Adi Shankara.
Yes.
And so how does a camper who comes here get to experience that feeling of being here other than the math? What else is there in this camp for them?
Right. So for most of the students who come to a place like this, and the place has got modern day facilities, but not at the cost of cutting the experience away from the village, right? So you see all the greenery around, you see the beautiful illam, the Nalakat house over there, and some of the discussions that we have are on the floors of that house. And that is a very unique experience in itself. I mean, it's very different from how we are sitting on chairs, how we are just discussing around a round table. When we are sitting in a very traditional setup, and sometimes when the discussion is happening at a very is at the peak, it might be raining heavily outside, and you feel, oh, should I appreciate that or should I appreciate the discussion that is happening? So all these things add on to the experience of the student, who come to this particular place. In fact, a lot of our game times, I only feel that Lord Varuna, showers his karuna during that time. When we have outdoor games, that's when typically it starts raining. And it's a month of April. Nobody has experienced rain, in any other city. And we just have fun outside in the rain, both young and old. And so these are things, I think, that sink into the emotions, and it's much beyond what you learn, intellectual pursuit and things like this. So those emotions stay back always.
I mean, coming from Kerala, I love Kerala monsoon, right? But Kerala is a southern state in India.
Right.
A lot of other camps happen in more accessible places, in metropolitan cities, half an hour drive away from the airport. Whereas this is like inside, right? So people are taking the time to travel so much to come to a camp.
Right.
What does that say about the camp in itself?
Right. So I think if we are really passionate about something, or if we want to pursue something deeply, we wouldn't worry about the struggle that is required. So if somebody wants to is an aspiring Olympian, they wouldn't say, oh, I have to wake up at 4 in the morning, I have to do that 365 days. They wouldn't worry about that, right? Who would worry about that? Who wants to give an excuse of why I shouldn't do that, right? So yes, it is difficult to get to a place like, like a state like Kerala, if somebody is coming from the north and other things. But I think distance and all these things are in our head now. Delhi to Cochin will be, what? I mean, if you come by flight, it is just a few hours over there, right? So all these distances and other things, these are notions that it's there in our mind, right? We don't bring these notions when we have to plan for a holiday and say, oh, northeast, no, it's too far, we'll not go there. If we really want to go there, we'll somehow make it. So I think all these things are conditions of the mind, and it's pretty easy to come out of those conditions. And the ones who come for the camp are ones who really want to gain knowledge. So for them, it does not matter where the camp happens.
So for these bright minds, when they come here, and what is the next step for them when they're coming here for a mathematical community? And after the camp is over, does that end?
So one thing that I've seen since the first camp is that there are students who are connected to each other even after a decade. Okay, they are friends because they came to this camp, and it's a friendship for the sake of friendship, not utilitarian, not saying that okay, there is some benefit that I will get. And what brings them together? There is a common subject that brings them together, and that is mathematics. They may not discuss about mathematics, on a everyday basis or whenever they talk, but these friendships really last. And that, I believe, is because they were not connected online. They were not connected in a day workshop. They were involved in a residential camp, and the emotions that they all carried were kind of together. So that, I think, stays back with them. So once the camp is over, they also get to, know each other, and they also get to know about some other programs that are happening. And some of them, after the camp, they continue exploring whatever, we had discussed in the camp. They take it to the next steps. And we also try to see if we can come out with some kind of an article, a publication for a math magazine or a journal, something like that. It has to be something that they have done in the camp, and we can extend that further. So we get such students who really, go to the next level and do such things. For some of them, it will be, maybe they'll go back, they'll think about that, they'll come next year. Some of them bring some new students next year. But they all become part of a community, and their parents also are usually not connected to these communities, because they just know their child who is passionate about mathematics. So here they find many others. So that community, I think, is extremely important, and that is built after the camp is over. Yeah.
So you say kids come back. So you teach different things every year, and a kid who came last year can come again this year?
Yeah, exactly. So the topics keep changing, because otherwise what's the incentive for somebody to come and do the same topic? And what will be the incentive for me to teach 16 years same topic, right? So the topics keep changing, and students, when they come, there is a different topic every time. And we have had students who have attended the camp for 4 years, 5 years with different set of topics. It becomes a great experience for them. So yeah.
You said this has been going on for 16 years.
That's correct.
Vedic Mathrix, I've not heard of any other camp a residential mathematics camp 16 years ago. So how has it been for 16 years?
That was the motivation to do that. So I've been part of Chinmaya Mission since perhaps now 2.5 decades. And I have experienced Yuva Kendra camps, and these were camps that played a big role in shaping my personality. So I strongly believe that there has to be residential camps, right? But I'm not a teacher of philosophy. I can do math. So then we thought, why not do math residential camps? It's like, going to an island, nobody's selling, nobody's wearing shoes, so let's give them shoes. So here then we started, okay, why not do residential math camps for students? And at that time, I clearly remember, I hadn't heard about any math residential training program anywhere in India. There were math camps happening, in other countries, but not in India that I had heard of. So it's been a great experience, and I think it's a privilege also to continue a program for 16 years. So it's been a great, you feel that it's your baby.
And after 16 years, have you found any other camps that teach the history of mathematics in India?
Yeah, so we still, I haven't found any camp that focuses only on the history of mathematics in India for school students. There are conferences, there are workshops that cater to the subject, but it is mainly for researchers or grown-ups. But what we need is, and that is what CIF stands for. So when Chinmaya International Foundation was founded by Swami Chinmayananji, he said this has to be an institution that will connect the past and the present. It has to be an institution that will bridge the gap between the Pandit and the public. It will be something that will bridge, it will be like a bridge between the East and the West. And that's exactly what CIF does. So in the camp also, we are taking all this material which researchers have worked on the history of development of mathematics in India, but it shouldn't just remain within that particular community, right? There is, all these students are entitled, they deserve to learn such amazing stuff. So our job is to get that perfect marriage happening. So we take in topics that the students can appreciate and bring it together.
You also talked about how you learn the history of a certain formula or something that you learn in school. You just learn it as a blanket statement.
Right.
What is the point of learning all this history of mathematics? How does a student derive utility from this?
Yeah. So one is the ability to inquire, okay, and the ability to understand what was the motivation for this. Because when we understand the motivation, especially when it comes to mathematics in India, mathematics was mostly utilitarian. There was always an applied side to mathematics. I mean, they were not pure mathematicians in the sense that, okay, I'll explore math, I'll build a new branch of mathematics, which is what happens in mathematics today. Nothing wrong. I really, admire those mathematicians. But in Indian context, math was a means to an end. So when we are able to show students what was the motivation, why did people come up with this, they are able to appreciate that even more, right? I mean, take your case, for example. You are a commerce student, right? So what does math mean to you?
This totally strikes a chord for me, because I remember when you were teaching us, you used to say that there were texts in which to make bricks, they used to use math too. Right. And they didn't talk about the concept of math. It was always for a reason, right? So for me, when you know why you're learning something, it's way more interesting to dive into it than, an abstract concept that kids will wonder, like, why are we even doing this, right?
Right.
So yeah, to me, it sounds absolutely lovely.
And math was taught in India like that until the 9th century. Would you believe that there was no independent text on mathematics? Math was always taught along with some other texts. Like the geometry construction came under Shulba Sutras, which were meant for, constructing fire altars, for conducting a ritual. Permutations and combinations came in Chandas, music, poetry, and the students of that, they were learning that aspect of mathematics. The ones who were students of astronomy, they were learning math that was required for astronomy. So math was always applied. There was no separate subject, so to say, as there was, of course, Ganitam was there, but it was not taught in a separate subject kind of thing. Only from the 9th century, there were separate books that were coming out as different subjects. So when you look at math from that perspective, I think for most people, and if you just take in terms of percentages, most people in the world, they like the applied side of it, right? I mean, finance professionals, scientists, economists, biologists, you name any profession other than mathematicians, right? They would be interested in where this is going to be applied. So we need to show them where this is going to be applied. What was the motivation for coming up with this?
So Vedic Mathrix happens in a village. How does someone who comes here actually imbibe that sense in them?
So for most of the students, it would be their first experience being in a village. Of course, they would have visited their native place and other things, but living in a different setting, which is very different from what they would have experienced, this would be their first experience. So for most of the students, this would be like one of their few experiences of staying in a village, and we want students to carry those experiences back home. So one of the things that we do is something called as village walk. Walking is something that they might not be very used to now, and walking through a village is a different experience. So when they walk on both sides, they see huge trees. I mean, Kerala being Kerala, they see huge trees and a line of trees, and there is not the sound of a single vehicle many a times when we are walking through these roads. So that's a different experience for them. And after some time, when they are walking through hillocks, they will be, okay, how far is our destination? So that is where we try to, give them the idea that it's the journey that we are looking at. It's not the final destination. They don't know where we are heading to. It might be a temple where we are going to finally, but the idea is not to go to the temple. The idea is to take them through the village walk. And we reach there, they have lime soda or buttermilk, spiced buttermilk, that is very famous in Kerala and all. And these are things that many a times they don't get to experience that back home. So that is one of the aspect. Another is the ground in Kerala is so clean, right? So for many of them, it's their first time walking without any footwear on the ground, and your feet are still clean. So they enjoy walking in that way. And we have to tell them, no, you wear footwear, otherwise there might be some kind of, worms that or some insects that will bite you. But it's an experience. Again, for many of them who are not from Kerala, they wouldn't have experienced a variety of insects. So there is somebody, okay, there is this kind of insect that I see outside my door. What do you do? What can you do about it? So that it's their first experience, and we want them to live close to the nature. So we give that particular. So these are some of the things that they carry back home as some of the memorable things. And maybe for them, I was quite brave enough. I chased that lizard away from the room. So these are things that they often come back and tell us. So this is these are some small things but leave a big impact on them.
And these debates and discussions that you talked about, how do these happen? What do they talk about? Is it always pure mathematical questions or how does it work?
Right. So I think we need to first think about what do we do in math, right? I mean, it is mainly about a systematic thinking process, right? Who really cares about how the division algorithm works? But it's a systematic process, right? So what we want to build in the students is a systematic thinking process through various activities. So for instance, if I can give you an example about the debate and discussion session. So in one of the camps, the topic of discussion was, do celestial bodies have impact on the life events of a particular, of any person? And we want to test it, let us say, right? So we have to come up with an experiment. And what usually happens back in school is somebody has designed an experiment, we execute an experiment in lab. But most students wouldn't have had the opportunity to design an experiment. The first time they will be doing is when they do their PhD. That's when they get to do it. But here at high school level, we give them, so this is the problem statement. Now, how do you design an experiment to test if this is true or not? And you won't believe, they do a phenomenal job just like a PhD student would have done, and they come up with all these, oh, maybe we should do this, maybe we should take samples from these areas, maybe we should have a sample that will represent the population. So they don't use these terminologies, but they understand what are the variables, what is a dependent variable, what is an independent variable in their own simple words. And then finally when they design that experiment, they're like, oh wow, now we know maybe this is how experiments are designed. So the idea, whatever topic we take may or may not be something that they may actually pursue, but the idea is you help them build these kind of experiments, and many a times they are also thought experiments. So they cannot actually execute that particular experiment, but they have to do it as a thought experiment.
For me, this method of learning is awesome because you don't learn the technical name for what you're doing, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so when you go on in the future and you learn that, oh, this is what it's called, or that is what it's called, you're like, yeah, I did that when I was in 5th grade, when I was in 6th grade. Why is it so fancy? And so, for me, that is a personal favorite at these kind of camps, and it's something you don't get anywhere else. So for a history buff, someone who's heard, you should be proud to be an Indian. We have a rich heritage,
right,
and our culture is full of stories. But we don't hear of any of this. We hear people saying we're proud to be an Indian, but we don't hear why they are proud to be an Indian.
Exactly.
So coming here, you actually get to dig into that. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I feel both are necessary. So one is, of course, we should be really proud to be coming from a civilization that has contributed to mathematics, science, and you name any particular field of knowledge. And when I say pride, I don't mean to look on other civilizations who had contributed with some lesser dignity or something like that. With all due respect, we do that. But when we see this, we will know that, okay, we are not coming from a third world country. Our country had that kind of culture and knowledge. So that is there. Second is, I think it is also important to understand why these were great. If I say that my grandfather had 100 elephants, but I don't know anything about elephants, I can only be proud of my history, right? But I should know what is happening and how it is useful to me today, right? So I see there is a lot of utility, there is a lot of usefulness to all these things in the modern day classroom for school students as well as college students. As you rightly said some time ago, now NEP is talking about interdisciplinary learning and all these things, which has been happening in India. Just think about it, right? A student who is learning Chandas, he is learning Pingala's text. That student may have nothing to do with computer science, but Chandas is full of algorithms. And these are algorithms that a computer science student is also doing in their class, right? So when you learn topics in math, computer science, language, music, poetry in a very wholesome way, won't that experience be such a very different experience, right? Every assignment is a meaningful assignment. It is not like, okay, how do you sort this particular array? I mean, that's a great question for somebody who is really passionate about, let's say, coding and computer science. But how does it really matter to somebody who is not interested in the subject? So they need context that they can relate to. And these are some areas from in the Indian knowledge systems that I think can bring a big change in how the student looks at the subject.
Also, when you talked about interdisciplinary learning, I think it's just so wonderful. The camp is about the history of mathematics. That instantly, to a person in today's world, history is from humanities. Mathematics is from pure science, and the commerce people are also going to come here and enjoy, right? So the fact that these distinctions did not exist
Correct.
when these texts were written, these distinctions don't exist in this camp, and that gives the learner that freedom to explore.
Absolutely.
And that's just wonderful.
So we look at questions as questions, not necessarily questions about history or math. These are questions for which we are seeking answers for. And who doesn't have a question? They just don't, all of us don't get people who can answer those questions. And many a times in the classroom, there is not enough time or, interest to explore all these questions. But here, everybody who's coming has a question. So in one of the discussions we had was, is math discovered or invented? It's a great question. And people started giving their opinion. So he said, why not have a formal session on, is math discovered or invented? And there were 4 teams who debated. So one team said math is pure discovery. It's there, we are just discovering. One team said, no, math is invented. We are inventing something for the sake of achieving something. Some said, no, some things are discoveries, some things are invented. And there was even a 4th team. There was only one member in that team. That 4th team said, math is neither discovered nor invented. I was like, how does that happen? He said, if we humans are not there, animals or plants, they don't have any math. So otherwise math by a subject, it's on itself, it should have grown, which didn't happen. So we exist, that is why math exists. So it is, something that we have given. So anyway, so what I'm trying to say is there is a lot of discussion that happen on these questions, right? Now, where do we put these questions under? Should we put it under history? Should we put it under math? These are questions.
And you talked about how assignments are like, you get time to do assignments, but
Right.
Do you sit at a desk and table and do it in this kind of lovely environment? What do they get to experience?
They just pick their spot. So some of them love to work on the assignments inside the illam, right? They'll pick up a corner, they'll work on it, or maybe they'll be sitting in a small group and they'll be working there. Some of them might be working on the steps of the Annakshetra. Some of them might be sitting in the classroom itself and they would be working on it. They may need a whiteboard to do something. So each one on their own, they'll pick their place, they'll work on assignments, and there is no compulsion that you have to do assignments. But when you see everybody else is doing, you automatically feel, I should also maybe join them. Maybe there is somebody who is not that passionate about doing, but what will you do if everybody else is working on it? You also join them, right?
So at Chinmaya, which is such a renowned place for research, do students get to see where this happens? Are there records of this, and do they get to experience and explore that?
Right. So Chinmaya International Foundation is a research institute mainly, and here there are research that happens on various topics in Indology. And there is a beautiful library. Anybody who loves reading, once they get into the library, they will not come out. They have to be kicked out of the library. So it has a beautiful collection of books, which are out of print, and even new books for that matter. So students get access to all these things, and many of them, when they get some break, they'll run to the library, they'll sit there, they'll be spending time over there. The library is also a place where they preserve and digitalize manuscripts. And manuscripts are not things that we can easily, get hold of, right? So they get to see what are the different types of manuscripts. How are palm leaf manuscripts different from paper manuscripts? How is the writing style different? How is what is the kind of instrument that they were using to write on different types? So why are the scripts different in the northern part of India and the southern part of India? And some manuscripts, they have pictures. It talks about a story through just pictures, nothing written. And when they see all these things, and we take them through a formal session where they can actually experience that, they can ask questions to an expert and all that, this is not something that they will get anywhere else. Then they understand, okay, for knowledge to transfer, right, what is the kind of effort that it takes for a scribe, for an author, and what does it take to identify these kind of manuscripts, bring it to one place. And there has to be a subject expert over there. There has to be somebody who can read the script, and these people have to work together and decipher the knowledge which is there in the manuscript. So all these things are great things that happen here, and students get that first hand exposure to these ideas. Yeah.
Another question I had was, parents send their kids, right, alone to a camp like this with their phones, and how do you know that your kid is not going to get distracted in 5 days and they're going to explore things that they probably shouldn't be doing, and they're going to miss out on this wonderful journey?
I think a phone or a gadget is something that we resort to for some kind of entertainment, right? Or when we are bored, or when we need some instant gratification, right? But when you are getting higher kicks in the real world, you really don't go to those cell phones. So here we allow students to keep cell phones with them, but never ever had I had to tell them that no, you should not be using your cell phone, you should not be playing games, because they have something else that is giving them a greater joy than what they actually do on their phone. So they just use their phone to call their parents if they feel like, but most cases it doesn't happen. They are in the camp and they just want to be here. So phones, I don't think in this camp at least, probably it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's a place, it's the topics, it's the overall ambience over here. They don't feel attracted towards the phone.
For me, I think one thing I've taken away from all these camps is a new way of life, a way of life where you don't need instant gratification. A lot of my friends, they ask me like, how do you sit without your phone? How do you not care about where your phone is? And that is something you learn only through such experiences where you're fully immersed in something and you forget everything else.
Yeah, I agree. And for that, we have to be pushed into that particular environment, right? I mean, it does not come very naturally. So we have to be away from the phone to experience that. I'm completely with you on this. Yeah.
So for 16 years, you've been teaching different things, and each year you have to innovate and update yourself, even though it's a historical topic. So what is your plan for next year?
So the plan for next year is, take up some topic that I wouldn't have done in the past. So every year, so the way I choose topics is something that I really want to learn, and where I feel that these are things that will really help in a modern day classroom. So it's an opportunity for me also to explore and learn. So we'll come up with some topics, mostly of high school level, something to do with in geometry, algebra, or things like that, and see which are the texts that deal with all these topics, and then offer it to the students, and also see how we can improvise as compared to the previous years, what new elements can be added, because that has to happen. I mean, there are so many programs that keep happening, and you have to be updated about how can you should always think about how can you make your camp a better camp, right? So yeah, so that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
So as you keep working, I hope more kids keep working to coming here and enjoying this and going and exploring more math. And even if they're not math enthusiasts, I hope they keep coming to things like this, because it's not just about math. Sure, the concept is math,
Right.
but you take away so much more, you learn so much more, and that's the whole experience. So to more kids coming to Vedic Mathrix.
Thank you so much. I'm really hopeful and looking forward to students, adults, teachers especially. And I really hope that we can continue this camp for many more years to come. So thank you for your wishes.
Thank you, sir.